The 2018 iPhones have been announced yesterday, and this year Apple introduced 3 new iPhone models: the iPhone XS, the iPhone XS Max, as well as the new weird iPhone XR. And it actually turns out that the iPhone XR, this one is the most interesting iPhone of this year, and here are not 5, not 10, not 15, not even 20, but actually 30 things you didn't know and you need to know about this phone before buying one. Also subscribe and enable notifications for more in-depth tech videos like this one. Grab some popcorn because this is going to be one long but very detailed and exciting video. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Okay, so number one, we have the name. Why is this phone called the iPhone XR? What does the R actually stand for? Well, in the end, Apple could have called this phone iPhone 9, and yes, that would have been a better name, but calling it XR makes it sound superior to the iPhone 9 because, you know, if Apple called it the iPhone 9, it would have been inferior to the iPhone 10 because it's a lower number, which could have affected sales. But a real reason why I think Apple called this thing the iPhone XR instead of something like the iPhone XC is because X is actually the Roman number for 10, and then C is also a Roman number that's actually 100. So that's probably why they wanted to avoid having 2 Roman numbers and, you know, just have one, which would be the X. And same applies for S. S isn't really used in the Roman numbers, and C is used, but R isn't used. So yeah, that's why I think Apple decided to go with the iPhone XR. And then this phone is actually a hybrid phone. It's a hybrid between the iPhone 8, the iPhone 10, and the iPhone XS. And that's because it has the iPhone 8 design on the back, not the 8 Plus, the iPhone 8 design, and also the back and the frame. The frame is made out of aluminum. It has the iPhone X front because of those larger bezels when compared to the iPhone XS, and it has the iPhone XS camera and the iPhone XS CPU. There we go. This is basically a Frankenstein phone, but that's actually not a bad thing. This is actually a really, really good thing, which I'll cover in a few minutes. And the iPhone XR doesn't come with 3D Touch. Instead, it comes with Haptic Touch. So Apple says that on the lock screen, for example, when you press the flashlight, you will actually feel a vibration. So in this case, I think the vibration motor is being used instead of having a separate haptic engine like the iPhone X and like pretty much every single iPhone since the iPhone 6s. And something that a lot of tech journalists got wrong is that the iPhone XR or the iPhone XS or the iPhone XS Max, they do not have a 120 Hz refresh rate panel. Instead, they have 120 Hz for the touch input, which is basically the same as the iPhone X. So yeah, something to keep in mind. And also, there's no fast charger inside the box, unfortunately, and also no 3.5mm lightning to headphone jack adapter, unfortunately. So that's missing as well. If you need one, you need to, buy it separately. And then also in the box, we do not get a USB Type-C to lightning cable. Instead, we get a same cable as last year, USB-A to lightning, which really, really sucks because one, you cannot connect it to a MacBook directly, which is funny because if you have a Samsung phone or a Google Pixel, you can do that. And then two, if you really want fast charging, you would have to buy a USB Type-C to lightning cable as well as a fast charger separately, which is quite expensive, like 80 pounds expensive from Apple. Now, something that you should definitely keep in mind is that the iPhone XR comes with an LCD display, not an OLED display, like the iPhone X or the iPhone XS or the iPhone XS Max, which basically means that, well, this is the biggest difference between the two. An LCD display, on the pixels on an LCD display only provide the color, and you need a separate backlight, whereas on an OLED display, the pixels provide both the color and the backlight, which basically means that on an OLED display, you can turn off and on individual pixels as you wish, and then on an LCD display, the colors are more washed out. You do not get perfect black levels. The blacks are basically grayish. So there's a huge difference between OLED and LCD, and this phone has LCD. Now, Apple is calling this liquid retina, but yeah, it's LCD. Essentially, this is a display that's better than the display used in an iPhone 8, for example. Apple says that this is the best LCD on any smartphone, and that's most likely true because the display on the iPhone 8 Plus and 8 were already the best LCDs on any smartphone. So it's not a bad display, but when you compare it to the iPhone X or the iPhone XS or the iPhone XS Max, there's a huge difference between the two. For example, another difference would be no HDR. This phone does not support HDR, whereas the iPhone X, for example, and the XS and the XS Max support HDR10 as well as Dolby Vision. And then the resolution is also lower. So on this phone, we have 1792 by 828 versus 2436 by 1125 on the iPhone X and XS. And this one comes with a PPI of 326 versus 458 on the XS and the iPhone X. It's not really a bad PPI. It's actually the same PPI as on the 4.7-inch iPhone 7 or even the iPhone 4 from 2010. Now, on 326 PPI, it's still a sharp display. It's not extremely pixelated. The only problem is that you won't be able to watch 1080p videos on this thing because the resolution is actually lower than 1080p. So that's definitely something you should keep in mind. And then also the contrast ratio is lower. On this one, we have 1400 to 1 versus 1 million to 1 on the iPhone X and XS. So yeah, it's basically a more washed out display. If you've seen the iPhone 8 versus the iPhone 10 in stores, it's pretty much the same thing. And the bezels are actually thicker than on the iPhone XS. So on the iPhone XS, the bezels got a bit thinner than on the iPhone 10. And I feel like these bezels on this phone are actually thicker than the iPhone 10 from 2017. Now, by bezels, I'm actually referring to the frame surrounding the phone. But yeah, when you compare this thing to other smartphones, it's still one of the most bezel-less smartphones on the market right now. So yeah, it's not a bad design, it's just not that good as when compared to the iPhone 10 or the XS. Also keep in mind that this phone has an aluminum bezel, an aluminum frame actually, when compared to the iPhone 10 and the iPhone XS, which actually come with a stainless steel frame, so you get much more premium materials on the iPhone 10 and XS. Now, a few interesting things when it comes to the battery. So first of all, this one comes with one battery, so a single cell battery, whereas the iPhone 10 and the iPhone XS and the Max, they come with two batteries in an L shape, which should make this last less because, you know, you have one battery that's smaller, and then you also have an LCD display which consumes more energy. However, this one seems to last quite long when compared to the other iPhones. So on Apple's listing, the iPhone XR has 2 extra hours of internet use and 1 extra hour of video playback when compared to the iPhone XS Max, which is already better than the iPhone 8 Plus. So it seems like the iPhone XR might actually have the best battery life on any iPhone so far. Interesting. And this thing is actually a pretty thick boy. So the iPhone XR is the thickest iPhone that Apple has ever made in the past 4 or 5 years. So this is measuring in at 8.3mm thick versus 7.7 on the iPhone XS or 7.7 as well on the iPhone XS Max. Fun fact, the Note 9 is also a fairly thick phone. This one comes in at 8.8, so this one is a bit thinner than the Note 9, just to give you an idea. And this is not confirmed, but it's most likely the case because this was reported by pretty much every source ahead of the release. The iPhone XR comes with 3GB of RAM versus 4GB of RAM like the iPhone XS is. Now, 3GB is basically what we got with the iPhone X last year, and unfortunately it had quite a few memory issues, as in you weren't able to keep a lot of apps open in the background, which is most likely going to be the case with this phone as well. The iPhone XR also comes with IP67 water resistance certification, which is actually the same one as on the iPhone 7, 7 Plus, 8, 8 Plus, and the iPhone 10. Now, the XS actually got an upgrade, so the XS iPhones actually come with IP68. The difference is that you can submerge those in up to 2 meters of water, up to 30 minutes, whereas this one is up to 1 meter of water, up to 30 minutes. However, if you damage it by submerging it in water, it is not covered under warranty, which is a huge downside. Not a lot of people know about this. So yeah, it's weird. Apple's promoting, oh, you can use this in the pool, but if it breaks, by the way, that's your fault. Like, I don't know, that's so stupid. What? Luckily, the same thing does not apply to the Apple Watch Series 4, so definitely subscribe and on the notification because I'll be making a similar video on the Apple Watch Series 4 with things you didn't know. Now, in terms of this phone, probably one of the biggest changes is actually the eSIM or the electronic SIM. So this one comes with 1 nano SIM and 1 electronic SIM. The electronic SIM means that you don't really need a physical SIM. So quick story time with Daniel. A few years ago, I had a fairly bad experience. I was mugged, I was threatened with a knife, and my iPhone 5S got stolen. I really had no choice in that, but basically the thieves, they took the SIM out and I wasn't able to track the phone anymore. Now, if this comes with an electronic SIM, that's obviously not removable and it can still be tracked, which is huge. And Apple actually introduced a brand new Apple Care Plus for this. So a new program that gives you theft and loss protection as well. So there you go. It's not cheap, it's quite expensive, but it can give you theft and loss protection as well. So that's pretty cool. Now, a few things about a camera. So this one comes with a single camera module compared to the dual camera module on the iPhone 10 and the iPhone XS and the XS Max. However, the pixels are actually larger, 1.4 micron size pixels versus 1.22 on the iPhone 10, which means that this one should have much better low light performance than the iPhone 10. Now, since it's only a single camera module, it means that there's no optical zoom. So if you like taking zoomed in shots, well, you can still zoom in digitally, but you would lose quality. So honestly, I don't think that's a really big downside on this phone. However, what's really interesting is that with the iPhone XR, you can actually take portrait mode shots with the back-facing camera and the front, even though the back one only has one module, and Apple introduced an aperture control, so you can actually control the level of bokeh. This was done before on Samsung phones, but on the iPhones, at least in the demo, it seems to work really well. And on the iPhone XS, it's actually done through hardware on this one and software. On this one, it's only done through software. So that's really interesting. And yeah, it's actually more interesting that it's not available on the iPhone 10 from last year because that one comes with 2 modules. This one comes with 1. This one has it. The only difference between this and the iPhone 10 is that this one comes with the Apple A12 processor versus Apple A11. So it seems like Apple developed this with the Apple A12 processor in mind. And speaking of cameras, the front-facing camera can now do 1080p 60 video from 1080p 30. Unfortunately, we still don't have Quad HD, even though the resolution of the camera actually supports that. Not sure why it's not enabled. And then with the back-facing camera, it now supports extended dynamic range. So Apple says that you need to use this, you need to record up to 30 frames per second video, so it won't work in 60. Maybe this is 10-bit video. It's not confirmed yet, but it's definitely, the dynamic range is improved from the standard one. But again, you're limited to 30 frames per second, and it only works with iPhones that come with the Apple A12 processor. You can finally record stereo video, finally. This phone also comes with 4 microphones, just like the iPhone XS and the XS Max, and also it supports cinematic video stabilization with the front-facing camera, again, only exclusive on the 2018 iPhone models. And it also supports Smart HDR, which essentially means that it's a better version of HDR that the HDR model version that we had on the iPhone X. So it takes more images and then combines those, and essentially it's, you know, it's better than the previous one. This is all thanks to the Apple A12 processor, not the new sensor. So yeah, it can process more images in real time. And the final thing that I want to mention about this phone is that in the end, having said all these, this phone is actually worth it. I mean, it starts at $750 or 750 pounds in the UK, 1-to-1 conversion ratio. Please, Apple, stop doing that. But yeah, the iPhone XS starts at 1,000 pounds, so there's a huge difference, or 1,100 pounds for the iPhone XS Max. And you get pretty much all the features from the iPhone XS. You get a larger display. Yes, it's an LCD display. It's not really that bad. The main downside is, yes, the display. You get a single camera module, which again, for some people that actually prefer using that optical zoom, that's a downside. But I mean, other than that, it comes with quite a few colors, so that's cool because you get, you know, more options to choose from. And it's quite a bit cheaper than the iPhone XS and comes with a larger display, so, and a better battery. So yeah, I wish Apple had an affiliate program for these because, yeah, honestly, it does seem to be worth it. Worth it the most, that is, when compared to the other 2 iPhone models. But yeah, there you go. Definitely subscribe and enable notifications if you have enjoyed this video. It was an easy one to make. And also, join the Zone if you want to support the channel. Tap that join button, and you also get some exclusive perks, such as a live stream, as well as some cool ZONEofTECH badges that actually evolve over time. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think about this phone. Do you find it interesting? Which color would you actually go for? Also, if you've made it to the end of this video, type in, I don't know, made it to the end, #lemon or something. But yeah, thank you for watching. Feel free to just like if you enjoyed it. To let me know. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you guys in my next video. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.